YouTube? This is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got your Week 8 start and sit video for the wide receiver position. Of course, this is always based off of full PPR and half PPR. Anything else, hit us up in the comments down below to help you out with your lineups. Now, there are no teams on a bye, so that is great news unless you're dealing with injuries. So most of your players should be playing, and now it's trying to figure out the best lineup for all the matchups that are happening. Now, these are your obvious wide receivers that you should be playing. Now, the only player I have an asterisk on is Tyreek Hill. Unfortunately, during the week, there was an injury report that came out, and he missed some time. And there's a lot of things going on. We're not really sure what's going on exactly, but there's just things that Tua has said. Waddle's kind of kept secret. There's an opportunity where Tyreek misses a game or more than that. So something to keep an eye on. But if he does end up playing, he should obviously be a starter. Now, the first receiver I'm going to recommend as a good start this week is going to be Drake London versus the Titans. I know it's hard to trust anyone from the Atlanta Falcons, especially when their head coach is still Arthur Smith. Like, we all saw the conference. We all saw what happened with Bijan Robinson. With that said, London's matchup is really good, right? Like, the Titans are allowing 20.6 points a game. They're allowing just under 190 receiving yards as a group. So that's a lot of yards for the receivers. And realistically, this is a matchup where Drake London could be a solid wide receiver 2 or a really high flex in this matchup. We're not sure what's going to happen with this offense because it's always so unpredictable. Desmond Ridder isn't great. And again, Arthur Smith isn't your traditional head coach who's going to use his weapons like he should. But with that said, I still have some pretty good confidence in Drake London this week, so I'm going to start him if I can. Another receiver I like this week is going to be Christian Kirk versus the Steelers. You could possibly put Ridley in this one, but with Kirk, he's just a lot more consistent as of late. Ridley is definitely struggling, and actually part of the reason why I think he's struggling is he doesn't have Zay Jones taking some of the routes that he would be doing. Ridley's now kind of the decoy. Kirk is taking full advantage of that, right? Like, he's getting plenty of targets. He's getting that middle of the field options. He's getting a lot of great opportunities where Ridley was, but is not now. This is a good matchup for Kirk and, again, possibly Ridley this week because they are allowing a good amount of targets. Now, Kirk is allowing getting about 7 targets a game right now, which is great. Again, very consistent. You should be playing him. Steelers are allowing a touchdown per game, 27.1 points to the wide receiver as well. So this is a really good matchup. Kirk can definitely get you into that 19 to 20 point range for this week. Now, another receiver I like this week is going to be Davante Adams versus the Lions. Detroit, the last 2 weeks have actually been pretty good against the wide receiver, holding the 12 points a game. So that says a lot, right? Like, that's a really good defense in that aspect. But before that, they were allowing about 17 points a game. And that's kind of where I feel like the Detroit Lions really are. And right now, with Jimmy G expected to be back, that only helps Davante Adams. Like, he's going to be force-fed plenty of targets. Even with the whole situation going on with the quarterback, he was still getting some targets his way. Not as much as you would like for what Davante Adams is capable of. But for this team, and this team to have any type of success going against a high-powered offense like the Detroit Lions, Adams has to be involved. He is definitely going to be a high wide receiver 2, low wide receiver 1 this week. The matchup's really good. Again, I don't see him getting that 12. I see him getting to that 18 to 19 point range, which is where I think the Lions will allow. So again, you should be feeling a lot more confident with Davante Adams this week. Last receiver I'm going to mention as a good start this week is going to be Terry McLaurin versus the Eagles. Last outing, McLaurin only put up about 16 points, which is okay, right? Like, it's a good wide receiver 2, maybe a good flex play. And that was before the trade for the Eagles did for Kevin Byard. So they are trying to help their secondary because that is one issue that the Eagles have really been, is that they cannot stop the pass. Like, they're allowing 21.3 points to wide receivers, a touchdown per game. Like, they've struggled unless they're getting to, like, the quarterback, like pass rush, which they're off and on. It's a tough matchup. And I think for this offense, and because their rivalry, you know, they know each other really well, but McLaurin, I think, is going to do really well. He's done pretty well against Darius Slay in the past. Byard, I'll see how that plays out. I think being the first week in, I don't know if that's going to be a huge play yet. I do think it helps the Eagles for the rest of the season. But this matchup, I still like McLaurin. Again, I feel really confident with him as a good wide receiver 2. I don't think wide receiver 1 numbers, but a good wide receiver 2 standpoint. Now, first receiver I'm going to sit this week is going to be Tyler Lockett versus the Browns. I know I keep talking about the Browns defense, and they are really good. I know the matchup didn't show up last week against the Colts, but they're really good. The receiving core, unfortunately for the Seahawks, are dealing with a lot of injuries. Tyler Lockett's dealing with injury. Metcalf's dealing with his injury. Really, JSN, or Jackson Smith and Jigba, is really the only healthy receiver. And even then, I'm not going to start him. This matchup's really tough. Like, the Lockett-Geno Smith combination from last year just isn't this year. So even if Lockett plays, which he is expected to, it's going to be a tough one. Like, Browns are only allowing 13 points a game. They've only allowed three touchdowns all season so far to receivers and about 120 yards combined. So this is a really tough matchup. They're not allowing a lot of yards. They're not allowing a lot of targets. It's really one of those games you should be sitting Lockett. Another receiver you should consider sitting this week is Mike Evans versus the Bills. Thursday night games are always really weird, right? I actually expect, as much as I think the Bucks have shown some spark and have done pretty well, I think Bills are going to unfortunately stomp on the Buccaneers. Now, that does help in the passing game, but I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Mike Evans. I don't think he's going to see enough targets unless he gets a touchdown in this game to really save his fantasy. I don't like this matchup. It's really tough. I think they'll get to Baker Mayfield. They'll create some turnovers. I just think in this one, I think Mike might be the 12, 13 point range. He might be somebody you still play in your flex, even though I don't recommend flex in Thursday night game spots, but he's just somebody I'm weary about. Like, I'm not sure I feel confident in putting him in my lineup and getting a solid wide receiver 2 outing with a low wide receiver 1. Again, he might be a flex play, but this matchup against the Bills is going to be pretty tough. Another receiver you should consider sitting is DeAndre Hopkins versus the Falcons. You most likely are anyways because of how the way the consistency or lack of consistency has been for Hopkins. Now you're going against Atlanta team that's only allowing 14 points a game to receivers. On top of that, you've got Will Levis as your starting quarterback with Malik Willis sprinkled in. Not really sure how. I mean, I guess we'll see. Maybe they'll do some Taysom Hill type of stuff. They'll use Willis. I'm not really sure. But that's essentially what's happening is both those quarterbacks are going to have some play time in this week. You can't trust it. Like, you can't trust that outing. You can't trust Levis. He might wow you with some plays here and there, but Hopkins should be on your bench. And again, with the whole trade rumors and swirling around and things like that, Hopkins still is somebody that might be traded. Again, they might lower his snap count just to keep him healthy while they're doing these trade talks. Now, the last receiver I'm going to recommend sitting is Jalen Waddle versus the Patriots. Last outing, Waddle only had 12 points. On top of that, there's a potential where he's the wide receiver 1 this week. Now, can he be a wide receiver 1? I think so. But against the Patriots, not so much. I don't feel confident in that. If Tyreek does miss this game, the full focus now is on Waddle, and the Patriots do a really good job at stopping your main weapons on your offense. And that's something that I think the Patriots can do a really good job at stopping Waddle this week. They're only allowing 14 points a game. They're not going to allow that him to really open up the field. They're going to do a good job getting after Tua. They're going to disguise coverages, things like that. Like, this is going to be a really tough matchup. So again, Waddle, I'm sitting. If you have to play him, but I would look at other options. Now, a receiver I do like as a sleeper this week is DJ Moore versus the Chargers. Now, having no Fields on at the quarterback definitely worries me for DJ Moore, but he still was able to put up 13 points last week on 9 targets. So he was getting some targets his way, which is great news, right? Like, that's what I'd like to see, even with Fields not being there. I feel pretty good about DJ Moore this week, though, because he's going against a Chargers defense that is not great. They're horrible against the pass. They're allowing a touchdown per game, 22 points a game. Like, this is the matchup that we're all hoping for DJ Moore. Like, had Fields been in this, I would have absolutely put him as an obvious start. Not so much this one, but I do like him. Again, wide receiver 2 aspect. I think he can get you that 15 to 18 point game, just because they're going to obviously try to keep up with the Chargers offense. So I really like this matchup for him. So those are my start, sits, and sleepers for the wide receiver position for week 8. If you guys do have questions for your lineup, maybe you have questions for trades or anything else going on, because again, trade deadlines are probably coming up soon for most of you, hit us up in the comments down below. If you haven't already, check out our other start and sit videos as well while you're here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, and that notification bell is on, because we'll be obviously doing videos constantly every single week to help you guys with your season. If you have any other questions, hit up in the comments. Don't forget the like button. I'll check you guys out next time.